Around the Town with Taylor Brown. We're going to talk about your team because it's episode 14. We've got Dean Clifford here in his Brisbane Broncos shirt. He was born in that. We've got Taylor Llewellyn-Brown in his Dolphin shirt. He was fastidious earlier when Brendan, wearing his mother's jumper, said, is that a Redcliffe top? But it isn't, Taylor, is it? It's not a Redcliffe top.
No, it's not.
No.
We here at the Dolphins, we accept everyone. It's not just Redcliffe natives. It's not just if you're from the peninsula. The Dolphins are all inclusive, you could say.
Where else?
I can tell you, my little niece supports them purely by the fact of their Dolphins, and she loves Dolphins. The only other team she would probably support is as if there was a unicorn team.
You know, if
I'm pretty sure that's why Wayne went there as well, isn't it? Because of the Dolphin logos.
He was sick of getting sacked by you blokes, so he looked for a bit of stability.
If I can talk without being interrupted by all three of you just then, the the tipping process where you go by the animal which would eat the other one or kill you.
Yeah,
literally, the dolphin would probably finish bottom of the ladder all the time, wouldn't it?
Well, what happens when a dolphin comes up against an eel?
Home ground advantage. Are they close to the reef?
That's what I'm going to say, yeah.
Are they close to the reef? Because the eel could dart in and out, you know what I mean? But if they're in...
Aren't eels slippery? Water, eels are slippery, aren't they?
But you're talking about open water, Lee? You know what I mean? Middle of the ocean?
Okay.
Reefs around?
What happens when the dolphin comes up against a raider?
Where are we talking?
There's only one winner. The raider will just raid the dolphins.
But even if it's in the water, they got their ship.
This is quality podcasting.
I think a dolphin doesn't lose many home ground advantages if you think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe the storm, because the storm could just electrocute the water, then everyone's in trouble.
Who wins out of a raider and a warrior?
Ask James Cook.
That's not a good week to be saying this, Rosie.
Jeez. who captain?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? You're not wrong, because he did lose, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
He lost. Brown bread, gone. So, look, not a bad point.
Talking of international conquests, it's the International Rugby League season. And you could argue we've got a mini World Cup. We've got Australia, Samoa, and New Zealand playing in one pool of the Pacific Championships. The Papua New Guineans, the Cook Islands, and Fiji playing in another. They don't cross over. They're just in their own unique tournaments. They all play each other once and then play a grand final. And then over in England play Tonga in a 3-match series. So you could argue we've got a sort of World Cup in a way, except none of them will ever cross pools. So first question to all of you, does anyone care? Taylor?
Absolutely, I care. I cannot wait to watch football this weekend. I'm really looking forward to it. But not only that, this is, when you put out as many podcasts and things as we do, Lee, and as we have over the last couple of years, you have to always remind yourself of your stance. That's why last week when Payne Haas had his game in the grand final, I had to backtrack on what I thought about him a couple of months ago when he was looking to leave. I said, look, looking back, he's done the right thing, stayed with the Broncos, they made a grand final. This is exactly what we called for with the international game at the end of the World Cup. We said there needs to be more fixtures played, particularly for England. We were worried about England. What did they do? They go out and sign up a 3-series test match series sort of thing against Tonga, who were great in the world. Beautiful. Awesome stuff. Then Australia, see that? They go Samoa, New Zealand, they line up this little Pacific. Beautiful. I think this is really good for rugby league. And I really can't wait to dig into it and watch it and get around it, because there is an extra passion around it. And with no NRL football being impacted, I really love the timing.
I totally acknowledge Taylor's point, Brendan. I am an advocate of International Rugby League. Taylor is. I know that both Dean and yourself are. Can't help but thinking, though, that this end-of-season tournament seems to have an aura of an afterthought, seems to have an aura of players dropping out because they don't care enough about it in some cases. Not that there's been mass dropouts yet, but there have been some notable omissions. What say you, Brendan?
Yeah, I'm a bit I think the dropouts aren't going to hurt Australia as much. but it is a little bit disappointing looking at the Samoan side compared to the team that ran out at last year's World Cup. Yeah, but it's given everyone a go. What I really like about the fact is the two-tiered system. So you've got that top tier, and I know we're not supposed to say that, but you got the strong nations with Australia, Samoa, and New Zealand, and then you've got the Cook Islands, Fiji, and Papua New Guinea, and those three should have some really good games. And then throw that in the mix. I don't know if it's just been recently. Then you've got the New Zealand A versus Tonga A that's being played over in England. The only thing I would say, I don't know if a final's needed. I don't know what you're really achieving with a final.
Dean?
Why not?
Yeah, I think from the general
Sorry, Taylor.
public, it's been hard to get people interested after the grand final.
I mean, you're Brisbane's biggest fan. You've got a Brisbane shirt for every day of the week, minimum. You've got a Queensland shirt for at least 6 days because they bring out about 6 a year. Have you got any Kangaroo shirts?
I do have three different shirts from a few different eras and everything. But yeah, for me, for one, I'm looking forward to seeing the combinations and seeing who in Australia gels and who in the other teams, the combinations that are formed. But I do admit, I think from a general public perspective, there hasn't been much talk in the circles that I've been around post grand final. The last week it's been all grand final, and it's just gone quiet since. No one's really even thought of the games coming up on the weekend. But as I said, for me, I love rugby league on any level, and I'm super keen to see the combinations that will hopefully form that I think we're missing in the World Cup last year.
For the record, boys, I do enjoy internationals like these because they're just something different. So the question I led with isn't my opinion. I do feel that they're being seen as a little bit of an afterthought, but that doesn't mean they're an afterthought for me. I do have worries that the games are in Australia, that Australia are playing, and that takes a little bit of the jeopardy away from the fixtures, in my opinion. I'll go to that in a bit. Taylor, I did cross to Dean at exactly the same time as you asked Rosie, why shouldn't there be a final? So do you want to pick up on that, and we'll go back, and then we'll both hammer Rosie on that?
Oh no, I'm happy to leave it there with that one. I think there should be a final, obviously, because it awards the nation, and you could see New Zealand or Samoa in the.
Taylor said he'd fixed his Wi-Fi before we got on, and now he's completely froze. Oh, he's there.
I'm there. You there?
You froze for a while.
Sorry, apologies. There's one thing I saw this week, and it only came out this week, really, was the Tongan A versus England A game.
New Zealand A, mate.
Sorry, New Zealand A. Apologies. I love that. I think that's a really good addition to this whole thing. I think it's
on KO.
Yes, it will be on KO. I believe it's that whole A game is something that Australia have done for a long time with the Prime Minister's 13, and it's something that's been done very well in world cricket. You know, you have the A side, and what it does is it gives the players that are on the fringe an opportunity to see what it's all about, to have that experience. It also gives the selection committee something to think about. Well, how would this guy go in a side that's, elevated with a bunch of players around him that may be better than he's experiencing at club level? How does he go in a camp-style setup? I really like that. It provides more football. It provides more opportunities. And I think that's really great. It's the first time I've really seen other nations adopt the whole A-team thing, and I think it's great to see.
I'd like to...
Go on, Brendan.
Could Australia put, rather than an A side for Australia, because they could probably come close to Australia, could Australia put in a 21s or a 20s? I don't know, that could play against maybe a Samoa or one of the other ones, which is an A side. I don't think Australia A would really work.
Well, we have the Prime Minister's 13. That is Australia A.
Yeah, but how many are they going to play this weekend?
Yeah, not many. But what it does is I think Ben Hunt played both this year. I think there's a couple of players that have played both this year in particular.
I think you're referring a bit to the old-fashioned Kangaroos tour where there used to be the emus, playing midweek. And yeah, I can see an appeal for that. You know, having a EMU style team. You know, on the fringes there, or the potentials maybe coming along.
Well, Lee, I'm interested to hear what you say, Lee, because you love cricket. And that's how I originally thought of this. I thought that's really great that other nations are adopting that.
I don't watch A games,
right,
of cricket, because I think if you're old enough, you're good enough. You're old enough.
Yeah.
I only watch A games if there's some kind of interest in there. So, in the cricket A team for Australia, there's been a couple of people of interest in there for me. So I might have a little look for 10 minutes. But other than that, I don't really look. That doesn't mean I don't think they should happen, though. And for people who want to consume their sport as much as possible, I think it's a great way to see other people. What I would say is that I would like to see some lateral thought come from the powers that be. I would like to see New South Wales country or Queensland country play in place of an Australia A side against someone or anybody, maybe both. I would also like to see the Indigenous All-Stars as a potential team as well, even if they are minus some of their top stars to play against, to play for the full Australia side. I'd like us to think along those lines, because I think we all agree that Australia is a strong... Well, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that Australia is the strongest rugby league nation. So in theory, they could take a team from Penrith and put them in the international tournament and take it out, or whatever it may be. So I would like to see something like that, because one of the growing concerns about the development of the game in the bush is a lack of New South Wales and Queensland country fixtures now. So if they were to play against some Tonga A, Samoa A, New Zealand A, I think that would be a great option for them. Just think a little bit lateral. Just because one's an international team and the other one isn't, doesn't mean they can't play against each other and play some kind of competition. I do remember in the Super League era, and I can't remember if it was the ARL or the Super League that did this, New Zealand were added to the Origin series.
Yes,
it was a try.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So we've done this before. So I'd like something like that. What I'd like to ask you guys about now, and this time I'll go left to right on my screen, leaving you last, Taylor. Do you prefer these tournaments where teams play each other? So Wayne Bennett was a big advocate of these about 15 years ago, I think, maybe even 20 years ago, having a 4 nations, a 3 nations, or whatever it may be. Or would you rather see a test series over 3 games? Dean?
Me personally, I think the round robin style works really good. I love to see the Australia versus as many teams as possible, rather than just one team. I think getting back to the old-fashioned kangaroo tour, though, is a great idea that I think do have planned for in a few years' time, I think, if my memory serves.
They'll change that.
And
cancel that.
Then there is that opportunity then for the best of 3 or best of 5 or whatever competition that they're going to do. But just in alternate years in between kangaroo tours, in between World Cups, and in between tournaments like that, the round robin series, I think, is a great concept, and yeah, I'm all for it.
Rosie?
I think a bit of column A and column B. I think every second year would be good for a tournament as such, but I'm still a big believer of the kangaroo tours, and then and those sort of things. So maybe 1 year you do a tour, might be a 3-game series against England, then you have a tournament, and then a 3-game series against New Zealand, or whatever. But then also too, I'd like to see football go back up the Northern Hemisphere, and rather than every 8 years or wherever they see some quality football, I think if we're fair income and growing the game in England, I think they need quality football every now and then at that international level. I mean, especially when so many now, I haven't seen the New Zealand squad, but I'd have to be pretty confident that there's 30 to 50% of them are NRL players.
Taylor, I'm a fan of the Test series. I think that I really like the fact that things can change between game 1 and game 2 and game 3. That there's a bit of yin and yang. That there's Tonga tried this in game 1, so we've got to counter that in game 2. But then Tonga might change their tactics, and I love all that toing and froing and that back and forth. The problem with a 3-game series is if it's a dead rubber by game 2. What's your favourite model of?
I don't have a favourite necessarily, Lee. I don't have one I prefer. I looked at this, and when you immediately asked the question, I actually thought straight away, what's going to develop the game more in those developing nations? That's what I thought immediately. And I thought a more of a series between a couple of different teams, like a tournament, gives teams like Papua New Guinea or something like that exposure to a higher level. Or, this time it's the Cook Islands playing against Papua New Guinea. I like the idea of those teams getting the experience and learning against a team like Australia or New Zealand or Samoa or Tonga. And I just don't think people would turn on the television if it was a Papua New Guinea versus Australia in a 3-test series. You
wouldn't put those two teams together, would you?
No, you wouldn't. And that's what my pure thought is. How do we grow the rugby league and show them?
Do you mind if I interject there? So,
yeah, absolutely.
The biggest thing in this country for rugby league is Origin, and they play 3 games.
Yeah.
And what happens in the intervening 3 weeks is a load of conjecture about who'll be in the team and what tactics will be employed and so on and so forth. And it just sort of builds and cascade. The other thing, can you imagine our grand final was a 3-match series? So even with the games that have been one-sided in the past, there's no, because the teams are so close, there's every chance the second game would switch result. Can you imagine a second and a third game between Penrith and Brisbane?
Yeah, it would be
right now
delightful. Yeah.
And I'm a real, and I know we're going into domestic football now, but don't they do something similar in baseball? They have a world final series, and then if one team wins enough, they just cancel the rest of the games. They
do that with the basketball and
baseball. I mean, I'd love
hockey.
to see. I'm a fan of the series. I'm not writing off the round robin or the pools format or anything like that. I just think we've already got that in a World Cup. So I wouldn't say I'm quite column A and column B. I am 80% column A and 20% column B, if that makes sense. Because I think series really drag out the personalities and the rivalries, and you're always second guessing what your opponent is going to do different from the week before.
Yeah.
And I just find that whole thing quite, if you get the 2 teams matched well, I think it's quite.
Yeah, no,
put it this way. Sorry again, Taylor. Even England, who haven't won a Test series against Australia for a million years, it seems, they always seem to jag one against Australia over a 3-match series.
Yeah,
and set up a decider. Yeah,
well, New South Wales jagged one against Queensland, so.
Oh, geez. No, look, I do like it. And the more you talk about it, Lee, the more you talk me over and make me sit a bit further on that side. But what I would like to see, if you're going to do that setup, I'd like to see every team do a Test series setup. So New Zealand, Samoa, Tonga, Australia, whatever that mix be, I'd like to see every nation adapt. As I said at the start, the more international football, the better. And I'd like to see every sort of nation get behind that setup.
Yeah, see, I'd like to see Papua New Guinea and Fiji play a series. One game in Port Moresby, another game in Suva, and then and then we could bring them all together and have like a magic round where And I'm not saying in Australia, I reckon it'd be awesome to repay back New Zealand. Where three of those series all come together for the one day. Imagine sitting watching Tonga and Samoa, then Fiji and Papua New Guinea, and then Australia and New Zealand play all in the one day at the one ground in Wellington or Auckland or wherever. I think that would be awesome.
So we've got the format we've got. And starting on Saturday, Australia play Samoa in Townsville at 8:10 p.m. The same tournament the week later, New Zealand play Samoa in Auckland at 4 p.m. And the same tournament the week later, Australia play New Zealand in Melbourne. The final of Pool A is in Hamilton at 3 p.m. the following. It actually doesn't say what day it is. The Pool B happens on Sunday this week. Papua New Guinea and Cook Island in Port Moresby. Fiji and Cook Islands the following week in Port Moresby. And PNG versus Fiji the following Sunday at Port Moresby on 4 o'clock. So what we've got is games on Saturdays and Sundays, and then on the final, I think we're going to have 2 separate days looking at the kickoff time. So we've got Saturday and Sunday content if you want to watch football. But let's not talk about the schedule now. Let's talk about the teams. Dean, Australia versus Samoa. There's only one winner, isn't there?
Yeah, look, I think Australia wins that. But as I said earlier, I'm really interested to see the combinations that are formed. I think last year, Australia at times looked pretty sort of staggered, almost like the old sort of New South Wales, Queensland combinations were playing their own competition inside the Australian jersey. So I'm really interested to see how Mal and the Australians come together and play as a cohesive unit. I think it'll be, pretty straightforward victory for Australia this weekend, but I'm really keen to see the combinations, as I said.
Taylor, building on that, what combinations would you like to see, in the key positions, I suppose?
Look, I think that we have quite a deep squad this year when it comes to really quality players, with Nicho Hynes and Dylan Edwards getting their shot inside the squad. As much as I do think combinations are important, I think more squad synergy is really important as well. Just all of them being on the same park. So, look, I think they'll go really well, and I'm looking forward to see how Daly Cherry Evans really comes into it. He had a cracking year for Manly, he had a cracking year for Queensland. He needs to come in and own that 7. I felt sorry for poor Daly Cherry Evans. Mal Meninga come out and said how Nathan Cleary was the clear number 1 and all this. And then Cleary pulls out and Mal Meninga's punched poor old Daly Cherry Evans a couple of times before knowing that he was going to be his star 7. So, look.
You're my favourite.
Yeah. I didn't mean anything I said. But look, I think Daly Cherry Evans will be really important for Australia this series. Just taking that number 7 role and leading like he usually does in those other big games.
Brendan, you were worried about the Samoa squad?
Yeah, I look at the skilled players, the spine, and you've got players that can't even make their local side. The NRL, like there's no Suwali, there's no Luai. They've got that Carl Opolupo. Well, I don't even know if Carl Opolupo is playing. I heard that there was murmurs that Bulldog said he was injured. It just the thing. Sometimes Australia, and it takes a while for them to gel. But when you look at it, other than Tedesco, the spine is the Queensland spine, so they're going to gel pretty quickly. And then I'm actually a bit worried that what sort of score is going to happen between Samoa and Australia, especially if Australia click.
I am in Townsville because I think if this game was in, well, they don't host internationals in Samoa, do they? But if it was in Campbelltown or Penrith,
or in Wellington or
in
Auckland,
Wellington or Auckland, the place would be absolutely full.
Yeah,
and most of the fans would not support Australia. So that would have an impact. Let's not forget that Australia, last time they played Tonga in New Zealand, lost to Tonga.
Yeah.
So, there's impacts. I worry about that in Townsville. Townsville aren't known to bring loads of fans to internationals either, historically.
I think they'll get a pretty good crowd because there's nothing happened in Townsville for a month or 2. They haven't had... They were out of the comp probably 2 or 3 weeks out. There's nothing up there. So, other than fishing. So
Rosie's written off the whole Super League tonight, and he's also now written off the whole of Townsville's entertainment options. So there goes our sponsorship from Townsville Tourist Board.
You never been the Mad Cow, brother?
I'm a Cairns boy, mate. I prefer Cairns over Townsville.
He's doubling down, as they say in the parlance.
I like sharing in the wool shed.
Yeah, I bet you would.
Taylor, do you have interest? Dean, do you have interest in PNG and Cook Islands?
Honestly, no, not really. I haven't even really looked closely at the teams.
I'll be honest. I love it. I love those games because you get guys like Brendan Pick, like fringe NRL guys get a go, like the Iros and Pierre Cure, and then you get those PNG guys out of nowhere, like the Fridge and the Jukebox, and they just love their footy, you know. And
I want to know. Sorry, mate. What I want to know is how do the Cook Islands get to play in a high-profile three-pronged tournament with PNG, Fiji as a secondary pool to the big boys when they didn't even qualify for a World Cup?
Yeah, they did.
So, no, they didn't.
Yeah, they played in the World Cup.
Oh, they came through the repechage, though, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, but
yeah,
they've got to come up against Tonga and Samoa and PNG.
Sorry, I'm gonna completely reiterate my argument there. When they are performing terribly and dropping down the rankings.
Well, who do you put in?
Somebody else from somewhere else?
Dave Ricciardo boys do a good job.
Oh. They've just been put in there because of logistics, haven't they? Not because of on-field performance.
Yeah, but get the rankings up. I'm not against it.
I'm sorry to everyone listening about the
who's
mistake with the.
You're going to have the Cook Islands boys on your front doorstep.
The cookies.
I can't wait until Big Wilson comes to your front door and Brendan Piakuro in his head guard knocks on the door and says, "Can I talk to that Lee Addison?" He says that we aren't good enough to make that. And then the Iro brothers will come and see you.
Okay, Cook Islands are currently ranked 13th in the world. Ireland are ahead of them. Wales are ahead of them. Serbia are ahead of them. That rugby powerhouse Serbia. France, Lebanon.
Well, why doesn't the Northern Hemisphere Rugby League and European Rugby League get off their asses and put their own emerging nations?
Is there no opportunity for somebody in the Southern Hemisphere to pick up the phone and say, "Listen, you rank higher in the rankings. We think you should come over here. We'll put some money together to contribute." What do these rankings mean if the Cook Islands just get appointed into this game?
Yeah, but
maybe they're
trying. Taylor.
Maybe they're trying to bring them up to speed with those games. As I just said, it's good to have a side that's sort of emerging, still got some work to do.
And they've been emerging for a long time.
But they're going to be pushing towards this now. They would have had this as a chance of redemption.
But imagine back in the day when all those three Iro boys were all playing for Cook Islands, but they couldn't because they were all playing for New Zealand.
So what's your point there?
So, the only reason that Samoa and Tonga have really pushed forward is some of those players have come out and they say, "I want to play for Samoa, I want to play for Tonga." So maybe by exposing the Cook Islands, some people will say, "I want to play for the Cook Islands."
But now we're going down the sympathy route.
No,
Ireland have dropped off significantly in the last few years. Don't they need a boost? Wales have dropped off. Serbia have ended up ahead of them on the rankings. France is always. When's the last time France toured the Southern Hemisphere?
But why can't the Northern Hemisphere or the European Rugby League go, okay, we want to put these three teams like the Southern Hemisphere's done with Samoa, Fiji, and Cook Islands, and say Ireland, Scotland, France, or get three teams or four teams up there and say we're gonna develop the game in the Northern Hemisphere. We're gonna put a carnival on.
I think there is something, mate. But my argument is, and none of you have addressed this, the world rankings.
Yeah.
Right?
Who's paying for it?
I understand that. So I'm still waiting for an answer to that question. What do the world rankings mean? What's the relevance of them?
There isn't a lot because they aren't. A lot of those smaller nations play once every 4 years.
They mean a lot.
I think up to 6.
I
think he's gone.
Taylor, are you back? Taylor's gone again.
No,
so Dino, you won't be what? Are you back, Taylor? You said something quite.
Yeah, he was talking about the rankings. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll end up talking about something completely different, and he'll still be finishing his argument about the rankings.
Oh,
go on. The Debra can somebody get Wi-Fi to Debra, please? Optus, Telstra, if you're listening.
Man,
can you stop? Can you replace the typewriter and please put the Wi-Fi in?
I don't think they've got the
Oh,
we've lost him again.
I was actually
Dean. The week after, New Zealand play Samoa in Auckland. New Zealand are going to win that, aren't they?
Look, that'll be a much closer game. I think New Zealand should win that. But yeah, Samoa's got a good side lined up. Keen to see how a lot of the Penrith and boys go after the grand final there in both teams. But yeah, if I had to pick right now, I'd be going for New Zealand. Just have that slightly better team, I think, on paper.
So the main question to you, Taylor, if we have got you right now, is can New Zealand threaten Australia?
Look, yes. I actually, if you look at it, I know Payne Haas is on fire, but some of those, like James Fisher-Harris, Moses Leota, they've got a ripping forward pack. And I think if they can threaten in the middle of the park, absolutely anything can happen. So I refuse to rule New Zealand out. Absolutely. I refuse.
And who's winning the lower team comp, Brendan?
Fiji. Yeah, I think Fiji win.
Now Rosie's gone. Rosie, your Wi-Fi is going crazy.
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
No, we lost you for a minute, unless you kept your head seriously still for 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think Fiji wins the lower grade one.
As long as they don't play Portugal.
Yeah, that could hurt. If I was Fiji, I reckon that was the biggest up yours to Australian rugby anyhow, and I actually good on them.
Let's change topic because I don't just want to talk about. I don't want to drag out these one things. I think next week when there's been a game, we'll have plenty more to talk about. Right? There's something came up in the press this week. A prominent person on social media, the NRL physio, expressed its concerns about the amount of rugby league players boxing and the impact of concussions. Taylor, discuss. And Taylor's gone again. This is
it.
Rosie, discuss.
No, you go, Taylor.
I didn't hear a lot of the question, but I presume because I heard a little bit, you were talking about boxing.
Yeah.
Look, I think that they're talking about concussion limits and stopping the amount of head knocks, and then 4 of their stars or 6 of their stars have gone out and boxed against each other. I'm not against these players making more money. I'm not against these guys doing what they can outside of rugby league to earn more money. And I understand they put their body on the line every week. But I just think these exhibition matches they have to be short-lived. There has to be a thought process of, well, if they're doing this for 27 weeks plus finals, then they're going out and boxing on the side. There has to be a concern for players' welfare and what they're doing. And I've got no doubt that very shortly that'll be written in their contracts that whilst they hold a contract with the National Rugby League, they are not allowed to do any sort of extracurricular sport and that includes boxing.
Well, I think it's personally, I think it's ridiculous that you have the Rugby League Players Association coming out so strongly about guidelines that players can't play too many games and the competition's too big and the players are fatiguing and getting injured, and then you allow them to go and box. I think the idea of chasing a bit more money is ridiculous. That most of the players that are in the boxing fields that are doing the promotions are on pretty good money to begin with, and it should, the clubs have every right, I think, to sit them down and sort of say, well, are you serious about this? If you're serious about rugby league, you have to follow these guidelines, these steps, and you have to be professional in the off season. They come back and they get hunted if their skin folds are over, and they've had a really lazy off season.
Skin folds over.
And so then why are they allowed to come back after potentially getting knocked out and having a Category 1 concussion during the off season?
I've never had that skin fold issue. You know why? I used to ring in sick the day the skin folds were done. Brendan, why aren't the RLPA coming in and saying this is bad for player welfare? You shouldn't be boxing.
The reason why they're coming in is money. These guys want the money. That's the truth, and they know that they're going to get backlash from their members because their members are saying, "I'm happy to do it." And if you look at a lot of the players, they're probably quite prominent within their clubs. Yeah, I just think that the players want it because it's obviously supplementing their wage. But the problem I've got with this too, though, is if we say they can't play football, what happens with these Indigenous carnivals, and different things like that? Like, there was talk down here with the Koori Carnival, what happens if, you got Josh Addo-Carr's not allowed to play for the Australia now because of something that happened during that carnival. And I definitely don't want that to be stopped. It's great seeing Jack Whiten playing up against Jimmy Smith, who's from, Wagga, and a young guy.
Oh, yeah, Jimmy.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, them playing against local footballers. I think it's, if it's played in the right spirit, I think it's awesome. And
doesn't
the
sound like it was in a great spirit, though, if they're having a big brawl.
But that's rugby league, isn't it? That's rugby league, little country competition versus boxing that has nothing to do with rugby league these days.
But a lot of the clubs are already talking about it, saying no, they can't play because what happens? Like, if, say, for instance, someone blows his knee out at that carnival, and they're playing under fatigue because you got to remember they're playing a lot of games on that day.
That's in no way a reflection of country football.
What's that? Sorry, the fight.
Was Taylor gone funny again?
Yeah, I agree with you, Taylor, that brawl is not a reflection of country football. It's definitely not, those carnivals are run very professionally. And I went to the one down the South Coast last year, and I was there for all 4 days, and I did not see one issue at all. And obviously there was an issue there, but if you watched a lot of the other games, there was definitely no issues at all. It was probably some of the cleanest football I'd seen, to be fair.
Any thoughts on any of that, Taylor, to wrap it up, if you're still in contact with us?
Yeah, no, I just think that, he king hit someone after the siren, Josh Addo-Carr. I mean,
he's been punished.
I was disgusted what he did in State of Origin when he flew in during play.
You said that at the time too, mate. You said that at the time.
I did. I actually said at the time he should never play for New South Wales again.
You did.
Because I thought it was disgusting. The game was over. The series was over. And he wanted to impose himself and be tough when he had 80 minutes to do so beforehand. And then in this case, he's thrown a punch after the siren. It's obviously a Josh Addo-Carr problem. That's what it is. But,
I think I was reading somewhere today that the Bulldogs are actually looking at it and deciding what they're going to do moving forward. I don't know if the paper's been true
looking at it, it's assault. It's assault. Yeah. The bloke the game was over. And even if the game wasn't over, he just walked up to him and put one on his chin. If you're an NRL player, you have to expect to be ribbed in some sort in public. You also have to be expected to have the gall and the kahunas about you to walk away when someone's trying to provoke you. Like, fair dinkum. It doesn't matter what anyone says. You can't walk up and just put one on someone's chin. And he's done it there. He done it on the football field. And I saw that and I thought, this bloke's living in his own world. That's what he's doing. He's living in his own world.
Taylor, because you've had your Wi-Fi issues, and I dare say the longer we go on, there might be another one or two.
Yeah,
I reckon it might be sensible just to call this a shorter podcast.
Yeah.
Before we go though, is there anything you want to add? Anything we've not spoken about? This is your podcast, mate. Anything you want to add?
No, I'm fine as long as I got my Josh Addo-Carr rant off my chest. He is what I'm going to town on this week. I'm pretty. Okay, yeah. That's what I'm going to town on. I thought it was disgusting. I think this isn't a once-off incident for Josh.
Taylor Brown goes to town on Josh Addo-Carr.
Absolutely. There's the Bulldogs looking at it is not good enough. There needs to be serious punishments put in place. You can't just punch members of the public in broad daylight, all that sort of stuff for any reason, really. So, I think a 2-match ban is the softest penalty I've ever seen for something like that. You got to think about it. If that man had been seriously injured,
Dean's nodded his head.
He could have been hit with the no stand down policy. If there was a serious injury to that bloke, mind you, I've seen a video where he goes stiff for a long time. If that bloke presses some serious
a lot worse could have happened. There's this thing called the police that could get involved. So
and I think they should. And if they don't, it's almost double standards the other way, Lee.
Interesting. What a great way to end the pod with that.
Yeah.
What a great way to put that. Dean, early night for you tonight. We brought it forward because of Rosie.
Well, one tick on that, Taylor, though, and what I want to push on this is that's Josh Addo-Carr. That's not the Koori Carnival. And I think that needs to be...
No, it isn't. Never.
Yeah.
No. And I never thought for a minute. I've played in a Murray Carnival up here a long time ago. It's absolutely not the case. That's Josh Addo-Carr. And that's why I'm so adamant that he needs to be punished. Because that's
Taylor's arguing it's not his first rodeo.
Yeah. But what it's cost him $40,000, and it quite possibly could cost him a lot more. But what you're saying
still don't think that's severe enough. And again, I'd like to see more than the Bulldogs coming out, the NRL and, the Rugby League Players Association that we've spoken about earlier, and, across the field, every rugby league organisation, New South Wales Blues, Kangaroos, all of them condoning what he did.
Oh, I don't think he'll be wearing a blue jersey again.
He will be.
I don't think he will, to be fair. I don't think he'll be wearing a blue jersey again. Not a sky blue.
Man City ain't signing him.
Yeah, that's my tip, is they'll keep him going. But anyway.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise at all.
I promised I end the podcast with talking about nothing to do with rugby league. I just did mention Man City, and that's all I want to say about Man City because they got beat this weekend. Dean, thank you.
No worries, guys. Talk to you soon.
Behave yourself. Stay off the drink. And no fighting at weekends. Brendan, good to see you looking a bit more trim in the face today in terms of grooming. And if your mother's just texted and said, can she have a jumper back? Thanks for coming on. And Taylor, no microphone. You got your Wi-Fi off the council. No headphones, no nothing. Taylor Brown Media. This is the lowest.
Mate, it's on the come up. You watch me in a couple of weeks. There'll be all sorts of things happening. It's on the come up.
Because I don't want to risk losing you again, Taylor. So we'll cut it a bit short there. We're still on 50 minutes, so nobody can complain. So it's awesome. A good pod, and we'll have plenty more to talk about next week. Take care, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers.